What is up, you guys? Jury here, and welcome back to a new video. Basically, I'm going to be showing you how you can run Xenia, which is an Xbox 360 emulator. So basically, if you don't know, Xenia is an Xbox 360 emulator that allows you to play Xbox 360 games. So in this tutorial, I'm not going to be showing you Xenia Canary or Master. I'm going to be showing you Xenia Manager, and I'm sure most of you heard or probably know what Xenia Manager is. It solves Xenia's problem by making a nice UI that basically allows you to adjust different games you have for Xenia a lot more easier. And on top of that, it also has other settings you can use for a particular game. So for example, you can automatically download patches for the game. You can also download DLCs. You can do a lot of stuff with the Xenia Manager that makes playing Xbox 360 games a lot easier. So without wasting your time, I'm going to show you how you can run this underneath Wine and Proton on Linux. Alright, so first things first, you want to go to the GitHub page of Xenia Manager, and I'll leave this in the video description. Then you want to go to releases, then you want to scroll all the way down to version 2.6.2. So this is the version we'll be using to run Xenia Manager on Linux. You can use version 2.6.3 if you want to, and everything will still be the same. Now you're probably asking, wait, why are you telling us to use older versions of Xenia Manager underneath Wine or Proton? Well, this is because starting from version 3.0.0 and going up, these modern versions of Xenia Manager have a specific Windows API that does not exist underneath Wine and Proton, and that is WPFUI. So if you don't know what WPFUI is, it is basically a user interface that uses XAML layouts and depend heavily on Windows APIs for rendering, theming, and window management. This means that this WPF provides modern controls, fluent design, and a lot of stuff that makes Windows 11 look more, I want to say, modern and aesthetic, right? So if we scroll down, this is what it usually looks like, and this is the code of it. So now you're probably saying, okay, but how do you know that this does not work underneath Wine and Proton? Well, I'm glad you asked, because I already have it set up, and this is the portal for Xenia Manager. As you already see, I wrote this in brackets saying version 3.0.0 bugged due to WPF. As you already see, Xenia seems to be working fine. You may be saying like, oh, this works fine, so why are you not telling us to use it? And that's because, well, not only is it kind of buggy, as you can see the description is black, so I cannot read what auto update Xenia does or what accent color does, right? So if I want to go to the part where I want to configure Xenia Manager, let's say I want to uninstall Xenia Canary. Take a look what happens. As you can see, it crashes. So it says a critical error occurred and Xenia Manager must close. The method or operation is not implemented. I want you to remember this because this is already in the log files, which is something that I'm going to open right now because Xenia obviously left us a log for us to check in. I'm going to open this one. So let's open it and see what is actually going on. We can start at this line. And as you can see, this is the part where Xenia starts to, run just fine. But when we get to the part where we want to uninstall Xenia Canary, I believe that was, as you can see, this line here is important. So it says system not implement exception, the method or operation is not implemented. So this is what I mean. So this WPF is trying to, or Xenia Manager is trying to use this Windows API, which is WPF. And since WPF does not exist underneath Wine or Proton, naturally, as you saw from our little demonstration, Xenia Manager is going to crash. And because of that, there is no real way for you to use this version, or there's like no real way to bypass this. So this is why in this tutorial, I recommend you use version 2.6.2 or version 2.6.3. Now that you downloaded version 2.6.2 or version 2.6.3, we can get into the fun stuff. So in this video, I'm going to be using models to run Xenia Manager, but you don't have to use models if you don't like it. You can use Lutris and it will work. You can use, I believe, Steam and it should work as well. Whatever it is you're comfortable with, go with that and Xenia should just work. Let me use models. Now, as you can already see, I have version 2.6.2 ready to be launched. But I'm going to launch, or I'm going to add a new bottle for it just for the purpose of this tutorial. Then I'm going to select gaming, and for the runner you can use pretty much whatever you want. I haven't tried GE Proton or like any GE Proton build. I just recommend you go with like Soda 9 or Wine G Proton and everything should just work fine. So I'm gonna click create. Now we successfully created a bottle, so now I'm going to go into this bottle, go to settings, and we're going to enable monitor performance. Very important if you're going to be using this emulator to run games that are a little bit demanding. It's always important to check how your system is performing, and I also recommend you enable game mode just to get a little bit of performance boost. And that's pretty much it. There aren't a lot of settings in here that we need to enable. Now we want to go to the working directory, and I'm going to pick Xenia Manager because this is what I got from GitHub. Naturally, I downloaded this from GitHub. So I'm going to select Xenia Manager is my working directory, and now we want to select the .exe. So I'm going to go back to downloads, Xenia Manager, and then I'm going to select this one and not this one because this one is the desktop app.exe and not the updater. So we want to pick this one. So now when you launch it on Portals or on Lutris or wherever, you might get this error which says, in fact, let me minimize this. So you might get an error saying you must install .NAT desktop runtime to run this application, and it needs version 8.0.18. So now you're asking, okay, what can I do? You might also get this error if you're running on Lutris or whatever you're using to run Xenia Manager. So now what you want to do on bottles is you want to go to the dependency section. This is going to be your best friend. This is where you find all of the required dependencies that most Windows applications expect. So for this, we are going to be downloading version 8.0 and we'll be installing 9.0. The reason why we'll be installing 9.0 is because from what I've noticed, sometimes .exes, when they show you that error that I showed you just now, and you download the required runtime, in this case this one, sometimes the exe would just complain and say, hey, I need another version of .9 or maybe an older version of a .NET framework. So I like to play it safe by installing both of these versions, and that's the reason why I installed this one. But once you have this installed, you're good to go and we are ready to launch Xenia Manager. But if you're on Lutris, things are going to be a little bit different. So I'm assuming you have Xenia in here as a locally installed game and you configured all of your settings and you got that error that I showed you just now. Well, to fix that on Lutris, you actually want to download the .NET NET framework. So if I go back here, let me go way back. So if you type .NET framework download, or yeah, just download basically. Okay, this is just gibberish AI, but you want to scroll the way down until you find this link, which will lead you to the .NET-Microsoft.com. Now you want to install the recommended version that Xenia Manager expects. So I believe it was 8.0.13. In here we have .NET desktop runtime 8.0.20. So this is the one that I would recommend you try installing, and once you do, you want to install it, of course, and not install it, but you want to download it. Jesus Christ. You want to download it as an exe, not install it because we are not quite there yet. So download it as an exe wherever you want to save it. Once you have it downloaded, you want to go back to Lutris, and then you want to select Xenia Manager as a demonstration, and then you want to go here and select run exe inside the wine prefix, and then you want to go to downloads. Then you want to select the Windows desktop runtime 8.0.20.exe that we downloaded from our browser. So when you click OK, as you can see, this is what the setup is going to look like. So what I recommend is you click install, which shouldn't take you seconds or even minutes. It should just like basically install everything what it needs, and once you do, you're good to go. Now of course I'm not going to do this because I'm not using Xenia Manager. I'm using Quake 3 Arena, and Quake 3 Arena runs just fine without .net runtime. So I'm going to close this. But once you have Xenia Manager set up, and once you downloaded the missing dependency on Lutris and Bodos, you're good to go. So I'm going to close this, and I'm going to close this as well. So if I open Xenia Manager, it should just work. This is where we get into the fun stuff, which is basic configuration and showing you, I would say, 1 to 2 games, just to show you that Xenia Manager on Linux works just fine. Alright, so this is going to be an update tutorial on this one, simply because behind the scenes I was running into a couple of issues where I couldn't install Xenia Canary, no mouse hook, no netplay. I don't know why. So let me try installing Xenia netplay just to see. Okay, if it works for you, that's great. So as you can see, I clicked Xenia netplay, and at this point you can create a profile. So I'm going to create a profile. So I'm going to type jewelry, and then you can close this, and Xenia netplay should be installed. Now I want to try Xenia mousehook. Okay, so if it works for you, that's great. You can also create a profile basically. So I'm going to do that, and you can close this. Now for Xenia Canary, I could not install it for some reason. I could not get this to work. So if I click on Xenia Canary, maybe it might work, maybe it might not. Okay, so as you can see, Xenia Canary does not work for some reason, even though when I installed Xenia Manager for the first time, as you can see, if I go back to Bodos, this is my first Xenia Manager installation, and it's basically configured. So I was able to get, if I remember correctly, Xenia Canary and mousehook, but I do not have Xenia netplay installed. So this is just like another experimentation, because for this one I could not get neither of these to be uninstalled. It's specifically Xenia Canary. For some reason it's not working, and I did a little bit of research, and it turns out that the GitHub page of it is not available for some reason, which could explain why it's trying to find, maybe it's trying to find like another alternative website, but it can't basically. So if I click multiple times, nothing's happening. The percentage bar is just at 100%, right? So just to let you know, if you're running into issues where you cannot install neither of these, your best option is Xenia mousehook, although I haven't really used it for the games that I play. But once you have these two working, that's okay. I believe Xenia mousehook should just work with any game you have. So now that we have these two installed, we can get into the part that most of you have been waiting for, which is adding a game. So to add a game, you want to go on this plus sign or this plus symbol. It's not a sign, but it's more of a symbol. Then this part, in fact, let me go back. So this is the part where I do get some questions in my comments saying, how do I locate my storage drive? I mapped my storage drive through Wine, and I can't still find my storage drive. Basically, to find your storage drives, you want to go into this slash here. This slash is your Linux partition, so you want to go in there. Then you want to find a folder called run. Then you want to double click on it. Then you want to find a media called a file called media. Sorry, you want to go into that. Then you'll find your username. So in my case, Mine is called Jury. You might have a different username, but you should know the username you selected when you basically installed your Linux distribution. So mine is called Jury. And now when you go into that folder, you should see all of your drives listed here. Now you may notice they're listed in files. That's just the way like Wine and Proton work, but you should see all of your drives installed. I'm gonna go into this folder because I have all my non-Steam games, and then you want to naturally select Xbox 360 game you want to add, right? So if I go in here and here, I'm going to select Bayonetta just because of the thumbnail. So I'm gonna click open, and it will give you an option saying which version of Xenia will the game use. Should you use NetPlay or Mousehook? I'm gonna select Mousehook simply because I'm not familiar with NetPlay. Yeah, so I'm gonna select Mousehook, and the game should be added automatically. So as you can see, this is Bayonetta, and if I click on it, the game is now added to my playlist. Now, if you go to Xenia settings, as you can see here on top, we have Bayonetta, and if we click here, you can see that not only can we configure Bayonetta, but you can configure each of the Xenia versions. So you can configure Mousehook or you can configure NetPlay. But for this tutorial, I'm going to configure Bayonetta. For the audio settings, I recommend you keep most of these at default, except for this one. This is basically, from my understanding, the in-game volume. So if you're noticing that the in-game volume is a little bit too low or too high, then you can adjust this, right? For the display settings, you can adjust the internal display resolution. So if you have like a very low-end system, you're getting very poor performance, then I recommend you adjust this to your liking, of course. Or if you have a very good gaming PC, you can crank this to up to 1080p, but for now I'm just gonna keep this at default because I do have a mid-end system. Another important setting I recommend you also mess with is going to be the frame limit. So for Bayonetta, I believe the game is capped at 60 automatically, but if you have other games where you notice like frame deviation, or like you're noticing a lot of frame drops or like frame fluctuations, then I recommend you play with the setting to your liking. So for Bayonetta, I'm going to set this at 60 frames simply because this game is really not that demanding on my system, so I'll keep this at 60 frames. So this is an experimental setting for each and individual game you have. For the graphics API, you want to set this to D3D12 simply because we are under Wine and Proton, so naturally we want to translate DirectX 12 to Vulkan. If you leave this at any or automatic, then like this emulation will automatically pick the graphics API, which for some games under Wine and Proton, they're going to work just fine. Some are not gonna work, or some just might even show a black screen when nothing's appearing. So for now, I recommend you keep this setting at DirectX 12. For these settings, I'll keep them at default. You can adjust this to your liking depending on your system. Now for the general settings, the license mark, I'm going to put it at first license. If you're noticing that the game is not working because it needs more licenses or whatever, then you can select all licenses. But for this game, first license should be okay. Then you want to select your user country. If you're from the United States, then this shouldn't be a big deal. But if you are not from the USA, then you can select your appropriate country, but this shouldn't really affect much. It does actually matter depending which game you're playing. So if you're playing a game that does not have let's say it doesn't have English as its language, then yeah, I recommend you actually select the user country to your liking. But I'm gonna keep this at United States for now. User language English if you speak more than just English. So if you speak more than one language, then you can select whatever language you want in here. Then most importantly, for the user input settings, the default is going to be at keyboard, and this is going to be enabled simply because we are going to play this on Mousehook and not Canary. So if you want to play on this game on keyboard, it should work just fine. But if you want to play this game on a controller, then you want to select either X input or any, and the controller should work. So I'm going to select this at X input, and I'm going to disable keyboard mode. Then I'll leave these settings at default, and you have additional mouse hook settings. You can adjust to your liking, but I'm going to leave these settings as is for now. And that's pretty much it. The next step to do is to save the settings, very important, otherwise you might have to go back and adjust everything, which is something you don't want. So now I want to go to home. Now for this game, I believe there is a patch for it. Let me go and check. Download patches. Okay, never mind, there are no patches for this game. These patches often contain fixes or getting a bit of performance, or maybe they might contain graphical fixes for the game, excuse me. But yeah, so for this game, as you saw, it has no downloadable patches. This means that we're good to go. So I'm going to open the game and it should work. Okay, the sound was a little bit glitchy, so I disabled easy effects for that, but the sound should be less glitchy. So as you can see, the game works. Of course, I'm using my controller, as you saw in the settings. I'm going to click press, and I'm going to say yes. Now you can go into the settings and test if your controller can vibrate or not. Mine is actually vibrating, which is good. The controls should be default. I'm noticing the sound is a little bit too glitchy. So this will be a very short gameplay. Let me see if I can go in full screen. I believe I can. Now, as you can see, naturally we are getting some frame deviations or fluctuations. This is because I'm recording. But otherwise, I would usually get 60 frames on this game, usually.
The once harmonious clans fell into disagreement and stoked the flames of hatred against each other, resulting in an era of strife.
Another game I am going to launch is this one. Let me try again. Sometimes Xenia Canary crashes for no reason, so just needs a bit of retries and the game should just open. So Phantom Breaker is, like I said, the most demanding game simply because it's a fighting game. I'm going to open training mode. So yeah, that's Xenia. If for some reason you cannot get to install Xenia Canary, then I recommend you use Xenia mouse hook and you adjust your settings to your liking so that you can get the best performance out of your system. Other than that, you can also install Xenia Netplay if you want to play online. I think it's possible, but I haven't tried that out yet. But I believe it's possible you can play this under one in Proton. So yeah, with that being said, that's pretty much it. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you have any further questions, let me know in the comments. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. It's your boy Joykey. Have a nice weekend, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.